We started these mighty conversations 2 decades ago, and there's no time like the present to talk about the things that are important. I'm Commissioner Khadijah, and this is the Mighty Six Conversations. Welcome to another impactful edition of Mighty Six Conversations. I'm your host, Vice Chair Khadijah Abdul Rahman, affectionately known as Commissioner Khadijah. Today, we're focusing on mental health. In this special episode, we're honored to have two distinguished guests, Dr. Vanetta Dotson, author of the book Keep Your Wits About You, The Science of Brain Maintenance as You Age. Coming up, Dr. Dotson will provide valuable insight on the brain. But first, we start with the conversation with Frederica McClary Myers, Director of Fulton County Behavioral Health Services. Dr. Myers, you don't mind me calling you Frederica, do you?
No, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you for joining us and welcome to Mighty Six Conversations. Please share with our audience your role, exactly what is it that you do with Fulton County?
Thank you. So I essentially propel and extend behavioral health services within the county. As a director, I manage and supervise our behavioral health outpatient services clinic.
Okay.
I also direct the services for behavioral health treatment within the misdemeanor mental health court in Fulton County, as well as Fulton County Recovery Treatment Court. I also work closely with the Director for Permanent Supportive Housing and their behavioral health component that they provide.
Well, I see that you bring a lot of wealth and experience. I know that we can't talk about any of the homeless issue or the other issues without talking about behavioral health. We know that there are millions of individuals dealing with behavioral health issues. What could you tell our audience, what are the most common misconceptions when it comes to behavioral health? Because for so many, it is not easily recognized.
Absolutely. You know, and behavioral health continues to be surrounded by misconceptions and stigma. Some of the misconceptions are that it's something to be ashamed or embarrassed about. Also that someone must have done something wrong for it to affect them. And then a large misconception is that there's very little that can be done about it.
You know, I'm a big proponent of behavioral health. And one of the reasons I am is because I think it plays a large role into self-care. You know, when we have a vehicle, we do a tune-up for the vehicle. When its seasons change, we bring in someone to service the unit. But we, as community of color, we really don't look at behavioral health or getting the treatment or whatever you consider to be necessary to be your whole self as normal. What are some of the things that you, as a woman of color, that you would say to us when we are having these conversations, what I call the kitchen table conversations about mental health? Because these conversations are uncomfortable. I personally don't think they have to be. But what are some of the advice or suggestions for people that want to do better?
Absolutely, and you're absolutely correct. They don't have to be uncomfortable. There's a history around mental illness and health that we want to keep it protected and close to the heart and always perceived as strong and able. Parts of that for survival, one. And then also there's a component where we want to, save face. I would say that the more frequent that the conversations are had, the more common it becomes, the more universal it becomes, and increased comfort level among our immediate connections, and it can expand throughout the community.
What would you say, if you don't mind, kind of shedding light on what you would consider early intervention?
Early intervention is seeking out help once those initial signs are recognized. A lot of times when there's distress happening, there's difficulty with mood regulation, there's development of maladaptive behaviors and patterns. Sometimes it can be underplayed or downplayed. And it's important for us to just be truthful about those, to really acknowledge what's happening, to really acknowledge the impairment that comes along with that, and to seek the appropriate and professional help.
I think that's the first step. I think as communities of color, we've got to make the conversation comfortable. And we have to normalize having conversations, seeking out treatment. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you wanting to take care of your behavior health, of you wanting to feel better. We know that the stigma runs rapid. And I want to put you on the spot here. We do that sometimes. We don't have enough funding for behavior health. And some of the things that I have been a proponent of is that if we take care of behavior health, we take care of homelessness. If we take care of behavior health, we take care of substance abuse. And so what are some of the things that you think, and I wanted you to kind of put it in layman's terms, for the community to advocate more for that would benefit the citizens of Fulton County?
Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. Funding is the first place to start. That would expand so many services within the structures that we already have, and it can expand the infrastructure of the service community. There needs to be a lot more connection. There continues to still be some gaps. There continues to still be some disconnect. So being able to advocate for increased acknowledgement, increased reciprocity, things of that nature would really help the field and the work that we're doing to go further.
Let me ask you this. Are there any, I really don't want to say emerging trends, but maybe challenges? And what I mean in the field of behavior health, do you think there should be more hand-holding with behavior health and general health? Should people, when they go in for regular exams and checkup, should there be questions asked regularly as part of the protocol, just to make sure that people identify any signs or any things that may be triggers for them?
Absolutely. Even from my own personal experience of going to like a medical appointment, behavioral health questions tend to be brushed over pretty quickly. Any thoughts? You feeling okay? And then it's kind of moved on to the medical side. So there absolutely is an area where inclusion of mental health questions, more thorough screening, more frequent screenings at just everyday sort of appointments would certainly help. Mental health and behavioral health touches every aspect, whether the general public wants to acknowledge it or not.
What advice would you give our viewers in how they can recognize maybe some issues or some red flags, and what are some of the first steps they should take?
Absolutely. I think personal recognition would be for an individual to take a look at interpersonal relationships. Like, are those impaired? Do those seem to be plagued by a lot of problems or conflicts? Is there difficulty in regulating moods between interactions or for significant periods of time? Does there seem to be a pattern in something that's not working out for you? We call it maladaptive patterns. Has there been a decrease in social supports, people withdrawing from you because of the way you behave or something like that? So I think self-evaluation, self-reflection would be an initial start. Listening to feedback from family members and those close to us.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I had a conversation with some constituents, and they brought it to my attention, really. They said, when we have issues in the family where someone's dealing with cancer or something of that nature, everybody comes together, they rally, they take them to the appointments and stuff. But when we talk about mental health, are we doing that family support? Are we saying, do you need a ride? Would you like for me to go to your appointment? Kind of speak about how important it is to have that family or friend support.
It's family and friend support is very important. When it's healthy family and friends.
Yes, please put that in there. Thank you.
When it's healthy. But having that support really can help an individual stay connected, stay focused, receive that feedback and input from those individuals. We call that a natural support, and that's a component of recovery factors. So we look at that. So if someone has supportive family and friends, it can really help them maintain their recovery, maintain engagement with recovery, and provide those additional supports that you mentioned.
What would you say to our viewers if they themselves or maybe someone in their family is hesitant to seek help? But if they do seek help, what are some of the ways that they can reach out to any resources?
I would ask them to be brave. Take that first step to reach out. I would encourage them to look into their available resources, whether it's through insurance. If they're uninsured, there are community agencies that are available that can provide that service. We're all connected. Social media, internet things today, it's easy to find something online. I would say also going to other health departments and things. They can refer you or provide that information for you. Primary care facilities can provide that assistance as well. So I would encourage an individual to be brave, to take that first step and to try, and then ultimately to maintain hope. The hope that there is a chance for recovery, and the hope that the process will work for them.
Well, I know we definitely need expanded resources in Fulton County, but right now, how can they get in touch if they need more information or if they want to seek any guidance? Is there a website or a way that they can reach out?
Absolutely. They can always look up behavioral health services on FultonCountyGA.gov. You can also call the main line, and it will direct you to your local facility, whether it's North Fulton, South Fulton, Central Fulton. So there's service areas, service locations throughout the county. But also, if they want to reach out to outreach department, things like that, then we will connect, we'll refer. There's a behavioral health network referral form. There's a behavioral health network communications line. So just reaching out, and we will get you to the right place.
Well, it sounds like we're doing a lot of good work, and you're part of it here, Frederica. Thank you. Can I count on you to come back?
I would love to.
As this involves, we want to make sure we have this conversation quite a bit here at the Mighty Six Conversations. Thank you for all the critical work that you and your department are doing here at Fulton
Thank you
County.
for having me.
Coming up after the break, we will continue the conversation with Dr. Vonetta Dotson, author of Keep Your Wits About You, The Science of Brain Maintenance as You Age. Stay with us to discover how to keep your brain sharp. We want to talk about different brain diseases, and also we want to educate you on how you can start taking care of yourself now and protect yourself when it comes to brain diseases. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Mighty Six Conversations. As we move into this month and we're dealing with mental health, we know that the community is challenged with brain diseases. We are welcoming Dr. Vonetta Dotson here now. She has a book out called Keep Your Wits About You. It's gaining a lot of traction. I've looked at it myself. And welcome, Dr. Dotson. I want you to pretty much tell our audience what your book is about and what inspired you to write it.
Well, first, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And Keep Your Wits About You is a book that's meant to teach people how to live a life that will help them have a healthier brain. So we've learned through research, including work that I do myself at Georgia State University, that some of our lifestyle choices, some of our behaviors on a day-to-day basis can either lower or increase our risk for developing dementia, including Alzheimer's disease and other brain-based disorders throughout our life, and especially as we get older. So the book talks about these pillars of brain health. We know that being healthy in terms of exercising, having a heart-healthy diet, getting a good sleep, activities like that are really helpful for protecting your brain. They literally change the brain. They change the structure of the brain in terms of the size of different parts of the brain. They change the functioning of the brain, and that impacts everything. It impacts our memory, our cognitive skills, our mood, our ability to go about our lives. So the book is a guide for how people can live a life that incorporates those behaviors so that they can age better and live better throughout their lives.
Well, let me ask you this. There's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to brain diseases. As someone who has actually had to deal with that in my family, what are some of what I would call the misconceptions of the old wives' tales as people? Because I know it's no longer that disease that people say affect the elderly. So can you kind of give us some of the misconceptions and what are the true facts of how it affects all of us one way or another?
Absolutely. So I think a big misconception is people who make a distinction between mental health and brain health without realizing they're really the same thing. Mental disorders are all based in the brain. So someone can have depression, anxiety, any kind of mental health disorder at any point in their life, and that is based on the functioning of the brain. So we shouldn't really be separating out mental health from, physical health. In reality, they're one and the same. So mental health is brain health, which is why the behaviors that help us have a healthier brain also can help with things like your mood and anxiety. So that's one big misconception. The other one I hear a lot has to do with aging, which is my specialization. People tend to think that as you get older, there's the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Exactly.
I hate that because it is so untrue. What we know is that at any point in your life, your brain has the ability to regenerate. We call that neurogenesis, when the brain is able to heal itself, to grow new neurons, to make new connections, lay down new memories. We retain that ability throughout our lives.
Okay.
And there are certain things like exercise that help to boost that ability in the brain. So that's a really common misconception, that we get to a point where we just can't learn more or think differently. That's not true at all.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm kind of going to go off script as we do in the Mighty Six. Everyone has been watching Wendy Williams and some of the things that she's been going through. And I noticed that you said things that we do, habits that we develop. Is some of the things, if you're following, is some of the things you're talking about, is that some of the things that she is going through right now? And when you're talking about habits, what are some of the things that we may need to start looking at or changing in our, not just our diets, but habits, especially as people of color, African Americans?
Absolutely. So I never want to say too much about a particular person without having spoken with them, but I can say that in general, we know that healthy habits such as staying socially connected, having hobbies that engage our mind, so challenging ourselves and learning new things throughout our lives, sleeping well, those are also ways of keeping your brain healthy, aside from the things I mentioned before, which were things like exercise. So those are the kinds of day-to-day activities that, what kind of job do you have? Does your job require you to learn new things and problem solve? That's good for your brain. Do you have hobbies or do things like traveling or reading books that you're truly trying to think through and not reading passively? All of those are things that might be kind of basic. They're just hobbies. They're things that we do throughout our day. And the choices that you make for those kinds of things can be really helpful. On the flip side, there's things that can be more negative. We know that stress is really has a big impact on the brain. And when we don't manage our stress, it literally changes our body. Our body internalizes that stress. It leads to something that's called, I'll use a big word, allostatic load. It's this wear and tear on the body, and it starts to affect the brain. It starts to degrade the brain. And so there's some research to suggest that some of the health disparities we see with the Black community and other communities who are facing chronic discrimination, part of the reason for some of those health disparities could be that there's this chronic stress that wears away at the body, affects the brain, and then affects all other aspects of life. So if we can, we love to change society so that we don't have the things that cause those, chronic sources of stress. But in the meantime, people can try to develop some resilience by leaning on social support, by doing things that are relaxing, trying things like mindfulness, meditation. Those things are really helpful. Deep breathing, making sure you get good sleep, finding outlets for stress are really, really important ways that you can very practically try to change that course and not have the environment around you determine your brain health.
So what I hear you're saying is social determinants play a very big key role.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that you can share with our viewers? Some of the signs that may need you to say, okay, we may need to check in. Of course, we don't want anybody to self-diagnose. That's not what
Right.
we're doing. But we here at the Mighty Six like to educate people. And so what are some of the signs or some of the things that people may need to say, I may need to get more information about this?
That's a really great question, and it's an important question because I think being proactive about one's health in general, physical health, brain health, mental health, is really important. So one of the big signs that someone might want to, see a doctor or ask more questions is when the symptoms you're experiencing start to interfere with your functioning. So when it's harder to do your job, when you're having difficulty at school, if you're finding yourself forgetting very basic things without having had some kind of medical event that would explain that change. When you're just seeing that your functioning overall is just getting lower, then that might be a sign that it's worth getting checked out. I always say that it's better safe than sorry. So if you're concerned at all, it's better to ask and then find out that actually everything is good than to not ask and let things progress. Because for brain-based disorders, not paying attention, not treating it can oftentimes worsen the course so that there are worse symptoms and it's hard to turn back the clock once that's happened.
Well, let me ask you this. How important is your family structure or those around you? How important, what role does that play in not only supporting but just making sure that people have a support system in place if they're actually dealing with this?
That's incredibly important. So social engagement is one of the kind of healthy behaviors that we talk about in the book. So I should mention the book has each chapter goes into detail about some of the different healthy behaviors we're talking about. Social connections is one chapter because it's that important that it deserves a full chapter. We know that, and when I say social, I mean everyone in our lives. It's our family, it's our friends, it's all our peers, anyone who we regularly interact with. We know that being socially disconnected is a big risk factor for brain-based disorders, for depression, for anxiety. And if someone already has any type of diagnosis, disconnecting can make things worse. And that's challenging because when someone, for example, is depressed, sometimes the response is to want to withdraw.
Exactly.
And in reality, what you need is the opposite. Having that family support system, overall social support system is incredibly important for mental health. I think we all learned that during the pandemic.
Exactly.
And we all had that toll that it took on us, some more than others because we all differ in how much we want social connections, but we all want it. It's ingrained in us as human beings to want social connection. So having a strong family support system, both in terms of having sources of stress relief, having people to turn to talk through things about, and then just getting the joy that comes from that. Having positive experiences actually does change your brain for the better. So you're not only reducing the negatives of social isolation, you're getting the positives that come with getting that support.
Let me ask you this. Communities of color, anytime we have anything dealing with health, wellness, mental health, there's some hesitancy. What information or what advice would you give us if we think we have a neighbor or a friend or a loved one or ourselves? What advice would you give us on where we can get help or what should be some of the first steps?
So first, I think it's really important for people to, again, realize that mental health is part of overall health. So to not feel that stigma that it's a problem to talk about having some depressive symptoms or having memory problems. People actually get really worried about an Alzheimer's diagnosis, and so they don't want to tell people they have memory problems. So I'm seeing that the stigma we have for mental health in general also sometimes applies to people who are getting older and don't want to acknowledge that, I'm a little concerned these memory problems might be getting out of hand. So realizing that all of it's based on the body and how it's functioning. There's no need to separate out mental health from physical health or feel like you're somehow not being strong or that you've done something wrong to cause it. That's the very first step. So when we approach a neighbor, a friend, a family member about concerns, if we're seeing something, I think coming at it that way, that this is just part of health, and I'm concerned about you. I've noticed this. Have you thought about talking to someone? And so you can start with your primary care doctor. You can start, and that person can then help you figure out who would be the best specialist to see.
So what I hear is start.
Start.
Yeah, don't
Yes.
look the other direction. Don't run away from it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dr. Dotson. Can you please come back? This is a conversation that really should be talked about all year.
I would be happy to come back. I can talk about this all day.
Thank you. We appreciate you here at Mighty Six Conversations. Thank you for joining us. Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode of Mighty Six Conversations. Remember, taking care of your mind is just as important as taking care of your body. I'm Vice Chair Khadijah, guardian of your trust and one who appreciates the opportunity to serve in making sure that Fulton County government is working to meet your needs and concerns. Want to get in touch with our office? Connect with us online. Email me at khadijah.abdur-rahman@fultoncountyga.gov or visit us at commissionerkhadijah.com. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. And of course, you can always contact me at 404-612-8222. Until next time, stay safe and know that Vice Chair Khadijah and the Mighty Six team are working for you.